Hello and welcome to another video from the Fan Pub. Player profile, trying to work out are these players bargains or are they?
Well, you've already thrown a lot of ones at me, and I appreciate your honesty with these. They are really interesting picks. It's definitely, these player profile videos are definitely capturing people's imagination. So thanks for your feedback and your comments. We do appreciate them, whether we like the comment or not.
All comments are welcome.
We're shaped by your views. There's no doubt about that. We're all drafters at the end of the day, and we like to win. So if a lot of weight goes towards an argument, I'm going to have to reevaluate. So it does help.
And we belong to a community where we're talking to people all day about players,
and they've all got strong opinion, and
that's what's good about it.
No one's going to agree fully with anything you say, but the more right you are, the more right you appear to your friends, the more chance they'll actually listen to you in the end, and that's why I hope these player profile videos do.
We've got another intriguing player today.
Right, who have you chosen?
He's a running back on an up-and-coming team, probably the up-and-coming team at the moment.
Okay, yeah.
He's going ADP 18.
Lovely, yeah.
Broke out at the end of last year when he finally got his chance.
Yeah.
We're talking Nick Chubb of Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
18 ADP.
Okay, and they're really probably the risk-reward pick for me of the entire draft this year in redraft. And the reason I say that is because the talent's clearly there. The team is obviously moving in the right direction. The schedule has its moments. I was looking at the schedule, particularly for the quarterback. He's really going to prove himself this year, is Al Baker. Whether he is what I think he is, he's going to prove that on that schedule this year. And I think Chubb is, without a shadow of a doubt, elite player. Now, what muddies the water, of course, is, they took the Kansas City Kareem Hunt. And he is fantastic, but of course he has an 8-game ban.
He's not back to week 10 apparently with the bye week. So.
With the bye week, yeah. So the trouble comes that for the season, you could argue what's Chubb going to do for you. And I think for those 10 games, well, without the bye, 9 games, I think he's elite. I think he's great. I think getting him in the second round as a player, I'm happy to target all day long. I'm treating him a little bit like bye weeks. So I'm kind of thinking, I'm going to get elite numbers from Chubb for the majority of the season. The question comes at the critical part.
Yeah, because the critical part of any year is the playoffs when Kareem Hunt's going to be there.
And that's where it muddies. And this is my problem, right? So
we're talking fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I kind of I love the 9-week block of time. So I kind of think, yeah, elite, great value. Second round for a player like this, I think he's going to be keeping pace with a lot of these top backs, actually. I could see that. And I think he'll have a lot of, there's a lot to like about Chubb. That classic, give me a bit of Chubb, I'll have a bit of Chubb all day long. Yeah. I mean, I love him for this season in that regard, but it's the playoff that worries me. Now, it's not simple as saying, just handcuff Kareem Hunt. His value's going really high.
But if you do handcuff him, you've got to hold him for 10 weeks. No value on your bench.
10 weeks is ridiculous. In redraft, it's absolutely potty to hold a player for 10 weeks because you have to hold him. You can't let him go. You can't drop him because somebody else will pick him up. That's a space waste. You can't manoeuvre players around. He's just taking up at least a sixth or a fifth of your bench.
Unless you've got a league where your IR allows suspended players on it, then
that's fair enough.
Yeah, that's something to look at.
That's fair enough. But generally, for most redraft leagues, that won't be an option.
No, of course not. No.
So you've got to use up a portion of your bench.
Do you know what the other problem is?
Yeah, go on.
Not only does he come back sort of week 10, but he's going to have fresh legs. He's a talented back.
Yeah, very much. And
why wouldn't they rest Chubb a little bit?
You would rest him, and you would probably at least halve the carry load down, and I think that's what you would do, and then try to use Chubb and Hunt into assuming that they're making a playoff.
So do you think this is a real puzzle that you have to solve? Is this guy worth it?
You see, the thing is, for 10 weeks, 9 weeks,
you can be closer.
You see, the way I look at it is simply this. Now, if it's a really interesting problem, because if you're in a small league, and small leagues for me are 10 team and 12 team, that's a small league. Large leagues are 14 and 16, but we often use this, we say large leagues, but that's what we're talking about, large league 14 and 16 teams. In a small league, 10 and 12s, you've got you've got 2 or 3 extra rounds to mitigate the risk of Chubb. Right, because you're going to have those extra rounds of better players because there's less players. There's more players to pick from because you haven't got so many teams. In the larger leagues, the risk is going to be even greater on this player because there isn't that many rounds. In fact, you get anything wrong, it shows up somewhere along the season. But I will say this: in the second round of a draft, because that's where he's going, and you're going to have him for 9 weeks. Can he give me close to his metrics, 180 fantasy points in that time period? It's possible. He could definitely be on pace for it. So I'm a buyer, actually, surprisingly, of Chubb, and I would prefer him over some players. My concern is I know the risk that means that later on, as the season nears the critical point, I better have made sure that whatever I'm doing in redraft, I've skewed my draft towards running backs heavily, because I better make sure I've found something that's going to make up for the loss of production that could come. And that's what you have to do if you take Chubb. You have to be.
So you're a buyer, but with the.
I'm not holding Hunt for 10 weeks in redraft league formula. I'm not doing it. If there's an IR spot, as you say, then that's fair enough. I don't mind it.
Yeah, there are some leagues that allow it,
but he's going at a high premium. His ADP is still ridiculously high. Have you seen that on Kareem Hunt? His ADP? Have you had a look?
Well, he's a talented player. I mean,
he is.
On redraft.
But it's only going to be there for such a small portion of the actual fantasy season.
Yeah, that's but the crucial part. That's
it is the crucial part. But it's very difficult for anybody right now to work out what will happen. My best guess at this at the moment is...
Kareem Hunt, 146.
Yeah, it's still too high for me.
But you still have to hold him for that's a major problem. You're losing a bench.
And I think
if it's a deep bench, then it's not a problem. But if you've got like 5 players,
146, but I bet you any money you like that he doesn't go 146 in most large leagues. I bet you his value goes 40 picks higher than that because people see the value at the playoff run and stick him on the bench. That's what will happen. Some other comedian in your league will take him and hold him and then use it as hostage value. Which I understand. So I would just say this. I really like the player in the second round. He's a player I'd love to target. Like to get hold of some more shares of him for this year, but there is a risk and you've got to be prepared to make sure you have slightly... I mean, I know we always say best player available, but you have to skew your draft slightly more towards the running backs, particularly later on, and use your knowledge of the sleeper breakout running backs more. And I don't think that's any huge surprise in the large
You've just got to
leagues.
be aware of it when you draft him.
But he's great.
The potential
While he's playing, he's going to be a superb.
Yeah, I love the player.
So he's the biggest risk reward because there's also the chance. I mean, people haven't mentioned this, but there's also the chance that Hunt comes back and they only sprinkle him in for the passing downs. That's possible, and that Chubb just gets a bit of an extra rest here and there during the games. And
I think when you got a fresh player in, especially a talented one, it's not like you're bringing in. I mean, even with CJ Anderson, you saw him come in late in the season. He looked really good because he was fresh. He had fresh legs.
Defenses are tired.
Yeah, defenses have played like 9-10 games, and he looked a world beater again. And we know he isn't. He's okay, but he's not a world beater.
But players are playing hurt; they're banged up, and so players with fresh legs have an advantage. So I do agree with you.
I mean, Kareem Hunt's a supremely talented bat.
Hunt will have a value late down the stretch, certainly something to monitor, and certainly a player you want shares of, actually. Not every league, because we don't know how it's going to play
You need a deep bench.
Now and again, it's worth taking a share of Hunt, but equally Chubb should not be overlooked because what he's going to produce, even with a reduced workload potentially into the playoff run, he's still got a great value. And I do like him so much for this year. Ultimately it's about winning and getting to the playoffs. This guy can give you that. He could get you there.
Yeah,
so
will he get you through it? That's the problem.
That's the issue. But I do like the risk though. So he's a player where I'm more erring on the side of I'll take a few shares. And in redraft in the second round, there's a few players to avoid. He's not one. I'd rather take him. Second round value seems about right because the amount of games he's going to play as an elite 1, and even if you argue a low end 2 in the remaining games, in a lot of formats, that's okay. That's okay. That's perfectly fine.
I mean, what do you think? Are you happy to take the risk on him? Do you worry about Kareem Hunt?
Will you take a bite of Chubb? Will you have a piece? I'm certainly going to take some pieces if I can.
Wow, that says it all. I'm not going to comment on that, but you please feel free to do so in the comments.
You must take pieces of Chubb.
If you like the video, please leave us a like and
tell us what you think of Chubb. Do you agree?
Consider subscribing because
Do you agree? Do you not agree? We really need your thoughts and feelings. What do you think of their schedule? I'm really curious to see, particularly from Cleveland fans. What do you think? He certainly proved he was good. Let's see how good he really is next year, this season.
And let's see how good Cleveland could be, because they could be very good this year.
It could be.
All right, thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one.